In this video, I'm taking a look at Laowa 15mm f4.5 macro 0.5x, one of the very few lenses that combine an ultra-wide angle of view with close focusing capabilities, offering up to 1 to 2 a half-life size magnification. Back in 2019, Laowa released a 1:1 macro lens that showed promise, but wasn't without its quirks. It had a bulky shift mechanism, required you to get uncomfortably close for full 1:1 magnification, and struggled with sharpness at infinity. Now, Laowa is back with a redesigned version aimed at fixing those flaws, all in a more compact and practical package. So, have they nailed it this time? Let's dive in and compare it to the original, section by section. I tested this lens on a 46-megapixel Nikon Z7 II. Sample images were taken with a Nikon ZF. You can find this review as a written blog post on our blog site, where you'll find detailed test charts on sharpness and other characteristics. Most of the sample images in high resolution are available on a separate site. I leave links to the blog post and the sample images in the description below. I would like to thank Laowa for lending me this lens for a couple of weeks for review and testing purposes. As always, this review is completely independent. Let's dive in. Here are the specifications of this lens. I've also listed the older lens specification here. The main differences are the minimum focusing distance, 35mm for this new lens and only 10mm for the older one. The filter size is larger on the older one. There are a couple of more lens mounts available for the new one. The new one is also lighter and smaller, while the older one was slightly faster at f4 instead of f4.5. The older one has less complex optical construction than the newer one. There is also a price difference, the newer one being $100 cheaper. Handling and build quality. As most Laowa lenses, the build quality here is excellent. Solid metal construction and everything feels tightly put together. It's a manual focus lens and the only control is the large metallic focus ring. It has about a 90-degree throw with medium resistance, but it's nicely damped and feels smooth in use. When focusing to the minimum distance, the lens extends by about a centimeter, but importantly, the front element doesn't rotate. The focus distance in meters and feet along with magnification ratios of 1:5, 1:4, 1:3 and 1:2 are engraved and filled with ink on the focus ring. A depth of field scale is also engraved and painted on the lens barrel. Additionally, the lens name and other markings around the front lens element are engraved and ink filled. The lens has no control buttons or aperture ring. However, electronic contacts on the mounting plate allow the aperture to be adjusted via the camera in 1/3 stop increments, and lens data is transmitted to the camera. A mini USB port on the lens barrel also enables future firmware updates. A sealing gasket is located beneath the metallic mounting plate, offering additional protection against dust and moisture. In addition to the front and rear caps, a small metallic petal-shaped lens hood is included in the box. The older f4 1x macro lens includes a tilt mechanism which is missing on this lens, so 1 point to the older lens. This newer lens, on the other hand, is both smaller and lighter, earning it 1 point for improved portability. It also features electronic contacts for EXIF data transmission. Another point. Additionally, it includes environmental sealing, which the older lens lacks, giving the newer lens yet another point. Optical features. Let's start with sharpness. For the infinity sharpness test, we look at 3 areas of the image: center, midframe, and corner. Infinity sharpness is excellent in the center, even wide open, at f4.5 and improves slightly when stopped down. The mid-frame is good at f4.5 and f5.6, but it softens at f8 and f11 before improving again at f16. This is a behavior we have seen in only a few lenses. Corner sharpness ranges from usable to good at its best and remains fairly consistent across the aperture range. In this category, the lens shows a clear improvement over the earlier 15mm f4.1x model, particularly in the mid-frame and corners. Close-up sharpness. Close-up sharpness is excellent in the center of the frame from f4.5 wide open. It gets better by stepping down with its peak sharpness at f8. The sharpness gets a dip at f16 due to diffraction, and the effect becomes more visible at f22 and most at f32. Nonetheless, f16 is still very good and f22 is good, with f32 still usable. The farther you move from the center, the less sharp the image becomes. For good sharpness at the rule of thirds intersection, you'll have to step down to f8 or f11. For acceptable sharpness at the 1/4 intersection, stepping down to at least f16 is necessary, but f22 is recommended. Even the sharpness near the minimum focusing distance seems to be better than on the older model, so that's another point for the new lens. It's worth noting that the older lens offers true macro capability with 1:1 magnification, double that of this lens, earning it a point. However, achieving 1:1 magnification requires positioning the lens as close as 1 cm from the subject, which often causes the lens to shade the subject and makes focusing and lighting difficult. In practice, you may end up touching the subject before achieving focus. So, while the older lens has the advantage on paper, its 1x macro feature proves impractical in real use. Lens distortion. While this lens isn't part of Laowa Zero Distortion series, distortion is impressively well controlled, virtually non-existent, which is quite rare. However, there is a catch. Like Nikon, Laowa appears to be using a trick. The camera applies built-in distortion correction that can't be turned off. It also embeds a lens profile in the RAW file, so when you open it in Lightroom or Photoshop, the software automatically applies the correction and doesn't let you to disable it. The result is a distortion-free image, but not entirely due to optical design alone. The older 15mm f4.1x showed a wavy, difficult to correct distortion, which this lens seems to be free from. Another improvement for this new lens. Vignetting. The vignetting from this lens is among the best for ultra-wide-angle lenses. It only exhibits 2.3 EV of vignetting wide open, and this improves significantly when stepping down, with light fall-off becoming negligible beyond f8. Clear improvement to the older 15mm f4.1x model, so another point for this newer 15mm f4.5. Focus shifts and aberrations. As a very wide and relatively slow lens, it shows no signs of longitudinal chromatic aberration, so there is nothing to worry about on that front. Lateral chromatic aberration, on the other hand, is visible in the corners, as demonstrated in these images, both at infinity focus and at close distances. However, the aberration is not excessive and falls between an average range. In this area, performance is on par with the older model, so it's a draw. Flare resistance. Laowa, like many other Chinese lens brands, has had its fair share of flare issues, and this lens is no exception. However, it seems they have made some improvements here. While ghosting flare can still occur, they are generally less distracting, and the lens shows better than average resistance to wailing flare. Flare resistance is much better than on the older 15mm f4.1x lens. Another point for this newer model. Coma. Although a 15mm lens is an obvious candidate for astrophotography, a maximum aperture of 4.5 is not ideal. While you can get away with longer shutter speeds for the occasional astro shots, the lens really needs to perform well wide open, especially in terms of chroma. Unfortunately, while chroma performance isn't terrible, it's not particularly good either, and it doesn't improve significantly until you stop down to around f16. Sun stars. When I first saw the specifications for this lens, I was a bit surprised to find that it only had 5 aperture blades. I wasn't concerned about bokeh. After all, it's a 15mm lens, but I was curious about how it would handle sun stars. Laowa typically uses even-numbered blade designs, which often produce attractive sun stars, and I've never seen impressive results from a 5-blade aperture in this area before. But I was wrong. This lens actually produces very nice sun stars, even starting at f5.6. By f8 they look quite good and improves by farther stopping down. Focus breathing. While this lens can focus as close as a few centimeters, I tested focus breathing at a distance of approximately 1 meter to near infinity. Even at this setting, the focus breathing is quite noticeable. Bokeh. An ultra-wide-angle lens with a maximum aperture of f4.5 isn't something you buy for its bokeh or subject separation, and we usually don't spend much time discussing it in reviews of such lenses. However, in this case, the extremely short minimum focusing distance make a significant difference. The background blur when you are really close is quite pleasant and unobtrusive. In this category, we don't award points to either lens, as both produce pleasing bokeh, at least to my eye. After all, the beauty of bokeh is in the eye of the beholder. Take a look at the images here and other samples to see how it appeals to you. Conclusion and sample images. First, things that I like. Center sharpness, close-up sharpness, bokeh, longitudinal chromatic aberration, build quality, sun stars, size and weight, distortion correction, vignetting, transmission of EXIF data. Things that are not bad, but they are not good either, are lateral chromatic aberration, price, chroma, off-center sharpness. Things with room for improvement, flare resistance. This is one of the very few lenses that offers macro or near macro capabilities in an ultra-wide-angle design. While it performs strongly at close distances, it also delivers good results at normal distances, making it usable for landscape and architectural photography as well. I would classify it primarily as a wide-angle macro lens that also can handle landscapes and architecture rather than the other way around. For pure landscape or architecture photography, there are certainly better options, but they of course can't focus nearly as close as this one. So, is it better than the older 15mm f4.1x? Optically, absolutely. It outperforms the old lens in almost every respect, both in image quality and practical use, and is cheaper too. That said, the older model does offer true one-to-one macro capability, although it's somewhat impractical due to its 1cm working distance, includes a tilt mechanism, and is 1/3 of a stop faster. As mentioned earlier, this review is also available in written format on our blog, where you will find detailed test charts on sharpness and other characteristics. I've also listed a few alternatives at the end of the article for those interested. Most of the sample images are available in high resolution on a separate site, and you'll find links to both the blog post and sample images in the description below. If you are thinking about buying this lens, you can support our work by using the links in the description. It won't cost you anything extra or affect the price, but it helps us a little. You can also donate to support the channel. A huge thanks for watching. Your comments are always welcome. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Until the next video, have a fantastic time, everyone.